So why don't you just start by sort of introducing yourself and sort of giving us an insight as to what a typical day might look like in your position?
Absolutely. So I'm Michele Ahouse. I am a class of 2000 grad from BU. I graduated from the College of Communications with a PR degree. I was Michelle Carletti back then. And I currently am the Director of Strategic Partnerships for EF Educational Tours. We're headquartered here in Cambridge, actually. And so what does a typical day look like in my position? I think one of the things I love about my position is there really isn't a typical day. EF is the world leader in educational travel, international educational travel. And so what I do is I work with different school districts, partners, et cetera, to try and create educational travel programs that are more accessible for more students. So that might look like talking to a superintendent, understanding how we can roll out a bigger program within their district so more students have the opportunity to travel. It might be working in-house with some of our salespeople and training and working with them as they are working with teachers around the country to build programs. Pre-COVID, I did a lot with conferences. And obviously we're not in person and going to conferences as much anymore, or at all. They're all virtual now. But I also run our education team, as it's in our name, education first. So the core tenet of what we provide and the experiential learning we provide. So we're actually an accredited institution, just like a high school or a middle school, meaning we can offer credit, but that is interwoven into all of our tours. So it might be working with accreditors, or we have a global citizen scholarship program where each year we award up to $1,000 scholarships to students who are looking to travel. So I get to talk and work with a lot of very cool people. Communication is definitely a key in my role, and there is never a dull moment.
Okay, so what is an entry-level position that could be obtained in your field?
Great question. I would say, as we look at it, our tour consultant role, who is kind of that frontline sales staff, talking to teachers, helping them plan trips. But I use whether it's entry level or not, it's a lot of, it's running your own small business. So while we do tend to hire a lot of folks who are right out of school, who have just graduated. We also have folks who come to the role, 5-10 years into their careers as well. So, but that is probably one of the best ways to start understanding the international travel, educational travel world, and to also get fantastic experience and develop professional development experience in essentially running your own small business.
Great. So did the undergraduate major you pursue end up having relevance in your current position, and was it always your intention to have your current position?
Great question. So I actually did what I like to call a tour of BU for my majors. So while I graduated with a PR major out of comm, I actually came in SMG as an international business major after about, I would say somewhere around 2 semesters. I actually transferred in School of Ed and was going to be English education for teaching high school English, and then went abroad to Australia in my junior year. I couldn't student teach there, so I did an internship in events and came back and decided that PR and events was kind of the direction that I really wanted to go. I have done none of those things officially. I've never worked in a PR agency nor done traditional PR. I have, however, for a good part of my career, done a lot of event work and planning prior to EF, and then moved in once I had my children, moved into the world of fundraising. And so that led my way, which is a form of sales. And so that led to my work as a sales director and now strategic partnerships at EF. So while the traditional majors that I had didn't really transfer, I would say all the skills that I developed, particularly around organization, communication, strategic thinking, as well as the tenets of education. I would say education has been a red thread throughout all of my roles over the past 21 years. So yeah.
How
And what
has,
was the
oh,
intention?
sorry.
Sorry, I missed the second half of the question.
Um,
Always my intention to have my current position.
yeah, yeah, I think
Uh,
you touched on it.
okay, great.
Um, Another thing you already sort of touched on was how has COVID-19 impacted your ability to work?
Yeah, it COVID has definitely impacted my physical ability, I would say, being in international educational travel. I usually travel a great part of my job, both domestically throughout the US to go visit school districts and teachers and educators. So I haven't done that since March 2nd was my last trip to New York. And then internationally, obviously. So my last trip was last February, going pretty much a year today to Panama. So that was the last flight I've taken. From working in office, because we're in Cambridge as our headquarters, we are all working remotely and have been since mid-March. But I think the ability to work virtually, we haven't really lost a step, and keeping in contact with each other. And we're a worldwide company, so we have over 50,000 employees around the world in 50 different countries. We're able to keep in close contact with all of our colleagues virtually, which, we were talking to them on the phone, so now we just use Zoom and actually get to see them. So it's kind of fun.
So were there any resources you utilized or internships that you participated in during your time at BU that you believe bettered your experience or had an impact on the career you ultimately ended up pursuing?
Yeah, great question. So I did a number of internships, although looking back and comparing myself to today's students, y'all do far more internships than I did back then. And it's pretty incredible to see the work experience that students are coming out of college with these days. The two most impactful internships that I had, one was on my study abroad program to Australia and Sydney. So I actually worked for the Motor Accidents Authority, which is akin to our DMV. So in general, not the most exciting place to work, but it was right before the 2000 Olympics, so back in '98, and they were actually the sponsors of the Paralympic Games, which are 2 weeks after the able-bodied Olympics. And so I got kind of firsthand experience in events and in understanding how the world of events worked. And that was definitely a pivotal point to help shape me in that world. After I returned home, I worked as an internship for what was called Student Advantage. They had a discount card at the time, but they also had an events division and planning division and partnerships. And so working with them and helping to work on partners and execute events and understanding actually helped me to land my first job with Arnold Worldwide as an advertising agency. And so working with them and their brand promotions. So those were definitely the starts to my career, and also helping me understand that what I was looking for, kind of the dynamic ability, the love for travel, the fact that I didn't want my day to be the same every day going to work. That those were kind of the big things that I took away from my internships while at BU.
Okay, if you could speak to a student right now who is aspiring to be in a similar career position to you, what advice or tips would you give them?
I love this question. I would say work hard, but gain a lot of experience. Become or really hone your skills as an active listener. I think that is so critical in any role that you're going to go into. Active listening is one of the best things you can have in a sales role, in a strategic role, to really understand what it is you're trying to provide and need to provide, and help to hone your skills. I think organization and communication are also two very critical skills. And just on the non-skill side, just talk to as many people as you can. Understand what their career paths were, where they came from, ask for those connections and introductions. Don't be afraid, but also be thoughtful in what you want to learn, and be prepared with questions and bringing to the table what you have to offer too.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm just going to stop the recording.